connect with you. Now, ladies and gents, I'm joined by one phenomenal ambassador for cricket, Lisa Sthalekar, former Australia captain. Lisa, can I see you here?
Yep.
Yes, right there. Lovely to see you, Lisa. Now, a lot of people know about you, but where do you find someone who's actually been part of a World Cup winning team for 4 times? Literally won most of the big tournaments that she's played. While she's former captain of Australia, she's represented Australia. Lisa, let me tell you, we Indians take a lot of pride in your success because at the end of the day, your life journey began in Pune. And it's a pleasure to have you on the Emerge Conclave. Thank you for your time. And, women's cricket is slowly getting back on the park. And we thought, let's deep dive into women's cricket, where it is at the moment, where it needs to be to keep thriving, and where we need to move forward, especially with the breaks that have been put by pandemic. Also, just a quick sort of update. Anybody who's attending the session has a question, please drop in your questions. We've already received a few questions from Twitter and Instagram followers. So we will take them on as we progress. Lisa, I've had the pleasure of interviewing you quite a few times, but there are quite a lot of people here who would want to hear a bit about you before we get into women's cricket.
Mhm.
From India to representing Australia, how did cricket happen to you and what were the challenges that you faced as a player?
Yeah, growing up in Australia, so immigrated to Australia when I was 4 years of age, and my father, born and bred in Bombay, cricket ran in his blood. He had two girls, two daughters, and I guess from my perspective, I was daddy's little girl. So whatever my father did, I wanted to be part of it. So that was the stamp collecting, model trains, and it was playing cricket in the backyard. Um, because of his love of the game, he took my sister and I and my mother as well to the Sydney cricket ground. I would have been about 7 years of age.
Wow.
And, I remember going there, stealing one of mum's bed sheets and kind of painting Aussie, 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 oi, 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 and got my green and gold outfit sorted, had ice cream, joined in on the Mexican wave. And it was a real event that I enjoyed. Plus, also the cricket was pretty good as well. And because I was playing in the backyard, probably around 8, 9 years of age, I said to Dad, I wanted to play cricket. And he said, well, girls don't play cricket. And I said, yeah, they do. They play every Saturday morning. Like all of the grounds that I go past, people are playing cricket. He goes, yeah, but they're all boys. And I hadn't even noticed. So he actually went to the local cricket club, which was West Pennant Hills Cherrybrook in Sydney, and asked if his daughter could try out. And they said, well, she'd be the only girl within the club, which is one of the biggest clubs within Sydney, and she'd be the only girl within the whole competition. My dad said, okay, well, if you guys would like her to come along, she'd like to come along. So I remember going to the first training session and, at the time when I was sitting in the car and I saw all these young boys, I was only 9 years of age. Right then and there, I went, oh, actually, no, Dad, I don't want to go anymore. I got a little bit scared and intimidated. He said, off you go. So he kind of pushed me to it. And, thankfully, I played boys cricket for 6 years and, I certainly enjoyed it. I had a couple of guys that I played in the same team for that whole time. I had a coach and a manager that were very supportive. And my father early on noticed I had some kind of great hand-eye coordination, because actually tennis was my first sport. Tennis was the sport that I wanted to excel at. I had tennis posters up on my wall, not cricket. Cricket was just for fun. But it took me about 3 years to realize that females played the game, that there was a domestic competition that had been going on since the 1930s, that women actually invented overarm bowling, that women actually played the first World Cup 2 years prior to the men. It was a female that scored the first double ODI 100 instead of Sachin Tendulkar, which everyone thinks. And women first played the T20 International. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Women have played such an important role within the game of cricket, yet for over 100 years, they've probably been discriminated against. And it's only now that we're starting to see that being rectified.
And yeah, while you mentioned that list, I think one thing that needs to be added is Lisa was the first female cricketer to actually score how many runs, Lisa? I mean, that's another feather in your cap, right?
I mean, I guess I was part of a generation that played a lot more cricket than my predecessors. So I was the first female to score the double of 100 ODI wickets and 1,000 runs. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Lisa, the one that you mentioned, obviously for everybody, cricket began in backyards, especially for people in Australia or overseas, also in India. And the bit that you mentioned with regards to playing with fellow sort of male players early on, we've had a lot of Indian cricketers as well having a similar story, because some of them actually sort of didn't know where to go, and there were no coaching available for female cricketers, and that's how they ended up going to the academy where the guys were training, and that's what sort of were the formative years for most of them. But going back to your career as a player, as a captain, what were the high points? And also, there are certain experiences that make us or break us. Looking back, what were they for you?
Yeah, look, I was probably part of really a successful period of women's cricket, not only internationally, but from a state and domestic level. So I was part of Cricket New South Wales, and our domestic side was the New South Wales Breakers. And my whole career, every every year I played, we made the finals. And out of the 17 finals that I played, we won 15 times. And then, I was part of the Australian women's side. I came in 2001. We won the World Cup against India in 2005. So that was certainly a special moment because I was playing with some of the legends of the game, Belinda Clark, Catherine Fitzpatrick, Karen Rolton, who are all ICC Hall of Famers. And then the next generation came through. And by the time I retired, which was 2013, when we actually won here in Mumbai at CCI, the next generation of female players had come through. So a Meg Lanning, Elise Perry, Elisa Healy, all the names that people now know. I was fortunate enough to firstly coach them because unlike female players nowadays, I had to work full time. So I was working at Cricket New South Wales. So I coached Elisa Healy and Elise Perry when they were 12 years of age. They were brats then. They still are brats now, and they're just a little bit older. But to actually play alongside these type of young stars, call them my friends, and now get to commentate on them is pretty special. So there's certainly been my highs. Lows. There have been plenty of times where things haven't necessarily gone my way. As I mentioned, working full time and trying to fit cricket commitments around work. And even though I was working for a cricket association who I was representing in the state competition or for my country, I still had to take annual leave to play for New South Wales or for Australia. So what that meant was I actually never got a break. I never had a holiday. I never had a chance to chill out and relax. And I saw, and I was one of them that had mental burnout, fatigue and depression. And it got to a point where I had to start to make choices. I was a leader of the New South Wales side. I was a vice captain of the Australian side where I got the opportunity to captain, but I was also doing a full-time job. So I had to start to make some choices. The great thing is now that for female athletes, at least within our country, Australia, the Australian contracted players are full-time. They're getting a salary where they can get a home loan, they can pay their rent, they can train at decent times, they can go to bed and do proper recovery. So things are changing in certain countries. India is certainly one of the strong countries within international cricket. Yet it really is the programs underneath that underpin that is where the attention needs to be given.
And Lisa, obviously, you were part of that 2010 World Cup winning team, and 2020, I do believe that probably was the tipping or the highest high that we've seen for women's cricket, with 80,000 plus people at the MCG exactly last year, 12 months ago. How has women cricket evolved? We know that pandemic has sort of put the brakes on the high point that we experienced at the MCG on 8th of March in 2020.
Yeah, I can certainly give you a bit of background into how that March 8, 2020 kind of came about. It was 4 years earlier, and they went, obviously Australia had won the rights to hold the T20 World Cup. It was a standalone event. So in 2010, the one that we won, we were playing at the same time as the men, but the women's game can now afford to be on its own platform, which I think is a really important step. So yeah, 4 years out and they say we're going to have the final at the MCG. Now, all of us, including the current players and past players, we're all thinking, why don't you try the SCG? It's a little bit smaller. You can fill a crowd there. You can get the right atmosphere. But, you know, MCG, even if you have 30,000, it looks pretty empty. So why not go to a smaller venue, which has always been the case for women's cricket.
Sure.
But they decided, right, this is what we're going to do. And through ICC, Cricket Australia and the Players Association, a huge campaign started. The first thing was we had the Big Bash, which is your IPL in Australia going on. They started a women's Big Bash. So same teams, same colours. We played at the same time. But 2 years out from 2020, they separated the competition for it to be a standalone event, to start to educate the people that you, instead of going and watching a men's match and just getting there earlier and watching a women's match, well, how about you come a month earlier when you're craving cricket and watch the women's match in prime time? So there was an education from separating the tournaments, and then there was investment. There was investment, ads, campaigns, big sponsors started to get on board because everyone wants to appeal to everyone. And cricket for a long period of time had only been appealing to half of the population. And one thing I've noticed in Australia is that all national sporting bodies, if they want to grow, survive, and develop over time, they need to appeal to the wider population. And we all know that mums, wives, daughters have a way of just twisting your arm, fathers that are out there, or husbands. They're the ones that really make the decision. So why not a sport be inclusive to everyone? So once that decision was made, the campaign happened. And ideally, everyone was hoping that it was going to be Australia versus India, because that would certainly capture the amount of eyeballs. And then even though we were trying to beat the world record, which I think was 93,000.
93,000.
Yeah, which was a football game back, I think, in 1996. They had actually sold that amount of tickets, but unfortunately only 86,000 came in. But that didn't take away what it was, what that day was, and what it meant to everyone that was there who had been involved in women's sport, but especially women's cricket. It was a real moment that you could draw a line in the sand and say, you know what, women's cricket, it's commercial. 86,000 have come in, paid tickets to watch just a women's game. So we had been building up to that, and then unfortunately the pandemic has happened. So a week later, everyone kind of went down into lockdown. What I have seen, unfortunately, during this last year is that national sporting bodies and broadcasters have turned to the traditional model of, well, it's male sport that generates income, so we'll just get that up and running. So it has taken a long time for women's sport in certain countries to get up and running. And we're seeing now the Indian women's side just playing for the first time since March 8, whereas the rest of the bigger countries have already started. And tonight's another prime example. You've got the Indian men playing a T20 game against England, and it's a decider. And at the same time, they've got Indian women playing South Africa in the first T20. Why would you have it the same time? And why would you have it the same day? I don't understand. If you're trying to create, if you're genuine about trying to create some visibility for your female athletes, why pip it against the same? So yeah, I don't understand decision makers and the reasons why they've come up with that.
Absolutely, Lisa. You know, that's a very well thought out point. In fact, that's also one of the questions that one of our viewers, Mayur Lukhar, has actually pointed out, that I would like to believe that women's cricket has indeed come a long way. However, today is the men's T20 international and also the India versus South Africa match, which is airing at the same time. How can women's cricket grow if this is how we are going to look at it?
And like I said, it's the decision makers that have come up with that. hand on my heart, I can say in Australia that would never happen. Firstly, there would be enough time for the fixtures to be announced. You work with your broadcast partners and you ensure that they don't clash. Or if they do clash on the same day, why not start it 3 hours earlier, put it on your Star One, so people are watching the women's game and then they flow into the men's game nicely. But like I said, I don't have the power to make those decisions, unfortunately.
I think someone, Mayur again, has said that I'm a great fan of Lisa, the way she commentates. So there's a lot of compliments coming your way, Lisa, since the time we put it out on Twitter and Instagram as well. But, you know, going back to the moment that you mentioned, Fill the MCG campaign, and just the push that the government gave in as well, and everybody coming together, it was more of a collective effort, because not before did we see 1.1 billion digital views for a World Cup final. So that was clear that there's appetite for women's sport and it does not need to piggyback. So how do you see from here on for us to capitalize and push forward this narrative that is built? I understand what we saw at the 2017 World Cup. That was the first stepping stone, after which we saw an increase in 2020 T20 World Cup. That gave us the belief that yes, this tournament can be standalone. It does not have to piggyback. So, you know, where do you reckon is the way to sort of capitalize and push this narrative forward?
Normally, when you have a big event and there's all of a sudden an interest in your team, you ensure that when they come back home, that you give the audience what they want straight away, which is that team again playing. 2017, it took another year until India played at home. And we saw March 8 last year, the last game that India played, and now again it's taken a year. Now I understand there are other reasons, the pandemic, things like that, but everyone's been very quick to get men's sport up and running. I just think there's been wasted opportunities when the public have tuned in, have been engaged, no more than a Mitali Raj and Julian Goswami. There is, within the Indian women's setup, there are so many wonderful role models and ambassadors. They need to be seen. So one thing that we saw straight away, as soon as we started a WBBL, all of a sudden Elise Perry in a Sydney Sixers outfit was getting stopped a lot more than she was in an Australian outfit, simply because the kids, that younger generation, had already connected with the Big Bash. Now you've got an IPL that goes on and it captivates the whole of India and the whole of the world, to be honest. It is the best T20 domestic competition in the world. Yet there is an opportunity there to start a women's T20 IPL. Yet there has been a hesitation, and it's around, well, there isn't enough depth. At the moment, there's a women's domestic senior tournament going on with, I think there's 6 pools, and within each pool there's 5 teams. So you can't tell me you can't find 8 teams worth of Indian domestic players, please. You can change the rules as well. It doesn't have to be 4 internationals. It can initially be 5 internationals. The great thing about the women's game is that we have been a lot more versatile, a lot more fluid, in order to allow us to showcase our skills. Hence why we're the first ones to play T20 international cricket. We took it seriously because we thought it was the vehicle to promote our game. When we saw the first men's one was Australia versus New Zealand, and you know, it was a very gimmicky, they all grew the moustaches, they went back to the retro kits. It was a great outing, no doubt, but we've seen how all of a sudden that gimmicky, oh, this is a bit of a hit and giggle type of cricket, to all of a sudden become $1 billion business around the world. So, you know, within the women's game, you don't need to paint or put us in the same system as the men. It is, whilst it's the same game, it is slightly different. So you can tweak things a little bit more so that it can be engaging, so that you can get the right standard. So for instance, if you had 5 internationals instead of 4, it'll be a strong competition. And trust me, everyone in the world wants India to run a women's IPL, even broadcasters, franchise owners. So everyone's just waiting for someone to flick the switch.
I think it's also at the end of BCCI. They've been sort of exploring this option for a while now, but from their perspective, in terms of what we've seen, the women's team, say 6 years ago, to the women's team now, I think there's a lot of improvement in terms of the access that some of our female cricketers get with regards to the National Cricket Academy. So a lot of things have improved over a period of time. Yes, there needs to be a solid, serious, more intent and push that needs to go in from the governing body, from the state body, that is BCCI in this matter. But from what we've seen women's cricket that we covered, say about a decade ago to now, there's a lot of difference. So I think it's small steps that's been taken. I totally agree in terms of the calendar for drawn for the women's team. It definitely needs to be having more matches because that's what gives them more exposure, and only because of that they'll probably be able to sort of handle the big nerves that come in the finals. So that sort of comes with the experience. But I guess it's also a collective effort. What we saw during the pandemic and the uncertainty, we saw Mrs. Ambani sort of come forward to support women's cricket through various sponsorship and different initiatives that were pledged. So how critical it is for the home boards and the governing body to sort of drop the apprehension and have a dedicated financial allocation for the sport to thrive in terms of investment and in terms of development of the players.
Yeah, just to add to your point, so when the WBBL started, a lot of past players were like, oh, the depth isn't good enough. We're going from 6 teams to 8. Even if we bring more internationals in, we don't think. Yeah, maybe the standard the first year wasn't great, but all of a sudden we had 5-6 players that came out of the WBBL that are now walk into international colours, in the Australian colours, and they dominate. And because it's being seen and it was on free to air TV, all of a sudden we've grown the pool because it's visible. You can't be what you can't see. So if the women's team or women's sport is not being shown, then why would females take it up? Why would parents allow females to even play sport, which I know is a big thing here in India in the culture? From a financial point of view, I can give you an insight that in the past, Commonwealth Bank, a bank in Australia, they used to pay the rights for the men's team. And what Cricket Australia would do in the past would just throw in the women's team for free, so to speak. But they were called the cricket team, and we were called the Commonwealth Bank Southern Stars. We had naming rights, yet we weren't getting any money. Things have changed now. All of a sudden, now the Australian cricket team is known as the Australian men's cricket team and the Australian women's cricket team. So no corporate sponsor is tagged to that, because they've kept what is the most important thing is Australian and cricket. And they've actually, by calling their men's team men, just shows you now the importance that they put within the women's side. But because of the WBBL and for it to go to standalone event, we are seeing women's products come on board. So a Rebel, which is a sporting attire, huge for females, huge for mums. They're the ones that buy all the kids their sporting gear. They're the ones that go out to the shops and get all of this. So they've come on board. So we're known as the Rebel WBBL, which is a completely different sponsor to the KFC Big Bash. So Cricket Australia is now understanding that there are enough people out there, corporate dollars, that want to have women's sport as part of their portfolio. And what it does is, from a client base, you're appealing to everyone again. It's not just, oh, we've just got men's sport on our books. We've actually got women's sport as well. So that sends a very strong message, more of a corporate social responsibility. And we know that there has been a big push, not only in this country, but everywhere. Actually, in Australia, there's a lot of issues going on about women's rights. So corporations being more empathetic to women and women's needs and providing those opportunities, because there has been a lack of opportunities since day dot, will always be seen in a greater light holistically.
Absolutely. And also, pandemic has brought a different challenge, right? As you mentioned, one of the points that the easiest thing for a lot of member boards was to go back and understand that the return of interest is in investing into a men's game to be up and running. So it's also possibly eaten into the budgets that were allocated for women's cricket. So how do you reckon this financial challenge could be dealt with for home boards?
Yeah, well, I think there has to be tagged funding. Um, so I'll give you an example. Like a lot of you females that are on this platform, I assume you watch sport, you pay for Hotstar. So you're actually contributing to that pool of money that just goes to males. Why? You're a female engaged in the sport. And if there was more women's cricket, you probably would watch more. Maybe, I don't know. So females are contributing already to your revenue, yet you're not allocating any money to ensure that you market towards them. Now, I think the best way, and one of the reasons why females were all of a sudden included in the IPL commentary back in 2015, it was to engage more women. So they hear a female talking about the game who may explain it a little bit differently, because cricket has so many lingos and so many references that if you don't know the game, it goes straight over your head. All of a sudden, they started to see an increase in females watching the game, maybe because they could relate to a female voice. So I think the only way forward is tagged funding a certain percentage that has to be. So obviously we know that BCCI distributes money to state associations. And I think a certain percentage of that needs to go into women's sport. And and it's not just playing, it's administrators, it's coaches, it's volunteers, it's everything. It's not just females picking up the bat and ball. Women can engage in the sport numerous ways.
And you mentioned a lot of points that Australia has done. I do believe that somewhere Australia has set a benchmark with regards to the roadmap and the development plan that they've done for women's cricket. So, how could other member boards sort of take a leaf out of this? Obviously, there is an Australian template which you need to tweak as per your country and as per the requirement. But what would the broader points be that member boards could take sort of note from the Australian model?
Well, obviously, there's an ICC Women's Committee, which I'm part of, and a number of past players, but also national boards sit on that. One thing I've known is Cricket Australia isn't holding on to the information and they don't want to share because they just want to be leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. Everyone wants a competitive global teams. So no doubt Cricket Australia would be happy to share. Players are happy to share, administrators are happy to share. You need to ask if you need help. I guess the thing is there are a number of reports out there now about where India sits in relation to other countries from a professionalisation point of view. I know that ICC have done a report, FICA, which is the International Players Association, has done that. And there are countries that are lagging behind. Now, if that's your country, then you need to start to ask questions. Well, why are those countries getting all the green ticks? What are they doing really well? How can we learn from them? And it's up to someone who has the power, and it needs to come from top down. That's one thing I've learned. Doesn't matter how many people are below your CEO or your president or your chairman, that keep banging on the door. Until that person opens the door and then instructs everyone to get on board, it won't happen. So I think that is possibly what needs to happen here in India for them to do it. Because one thing I can tell you is that the world is very concerned when India sort their stuff out, that they will dominate, not only from a financial point of view, but they will dominate on the field, both from men's and women's cricket, and actually win ICC events.
True. And we've seen that. We've seen some of these young girls, the kind of performance that they've put up. Maybe it's that, lack of experience or exposure to this big ticket events that sort of pulls them down at a big moment, at a big stage. Because that's pretty much what we saw at the MCG, right? I think the environment just got too intimidating. And for me, while I was present there, I covered the 2015 World Cup at the MCG. And trust me, the kind of atmosphere that was there at 2020, it matched to what I saw between Australia and New Zealand in that World Cup final. Lisa, as a former player and an important voice for sport, how do you see this constant comparison, right? You're always being compared to men's cricket. Do you reckon that does a bit of harm as well to women's cricket and the branding around it and the story around it?
Well, one thing that I know within cricket, cricket is a game of numbers at the end of the day. Everyone looks at how many runs, the average, the strike rate, how many wickets, all of those things. So, and the speed of delivery, things like that. So when you're going to compare, so for instance, a lot of players, I'll give you a prime example. Virat Kohli, the first player to score 3,000 T20 runs. Well, no, he's not. He's the
He's not.
third.
Girls are.
Yeah. So Susie Bates and then Stefani Taylor from the West Indies are. So if you're going to make a statement like that, at least please be correct about your statistics. So he is the first male, but he's just not the first player.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I quite like the graphic that was put around on the Instagram and Twitter saying that Virat Kohli joins the female club, you see?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and that's clever marketing, but it's also educating the masses that, you know what, these guys haven't been the first to do things. The women have been the first to do a lot of things. I think comparison, you know, I do think it's apples and oranges. Yes, they're both pieces of fruit, but they're very different in itself. So you're not going to compare an apple and an orange. And I think the female players have deserved to be a sport recognised by itself. There will always be physical difficulties. That's a no-brainer. You're not going to get someone that's going to bowl 150 kilometres an hour. But one thing that we see in tennis, and probably tennis is advanced, you know, and has been the leader within women's sport, is people don't not tune in to watch Serena Williams play, do they? I mean, she's one of the most marketable players going around. Yet the women's Grand Slam is just, you know, that draw is what, just as much as the men. You know, so we don't complain the fact that a female doesn't serve as fast as the men. You probably get a better rally because of it. And one thing, and even Sunny Gavaskar, actually, I just saw on Twitter, had made a comment that females are technically outstanding. Now we have to be, because we don't have brute strength to get away with things. So from a pure a mechanical point of view, everything needs to be working precisely for us to be able to go inside out over cover for six. So the skill and the level of that the female players have is probably at the same level, if not higher, because we don't have that power to just shank the ball to the onside and hit the top edge because it's coming at 150 and then go over the keeper for six. You're not going to see that in the women's game.
No.
What you will see is closer games, because you can't get a 32 run over. You'll get a 20 something over maybe, but the games are a lot closer. So as a spectator, isn't that what you want? Don't you want two teams against each other and it comes down to the last over? That's what we all want. Whether it's male, female, boys, girls, I don't think it matters.
And that's how Australia qualified for the 2020 final, right? What a match that was.
Yeah, in what sense? What do you mean?
In terms of the South Africa game, eventually it was that result, that sort of last ball that sort of decided that Australia made it to the final.
Yep.
How do you sort of view the role of women's cricket in terms of relevance, in terms of big picture in the cricket ecosystem? Why I say this is, and also society, right? Why I say this is because after the final at the MCG, I saw this father and a daughter. They were leaving the ground after just about when the Katy Perry concert began. And at that point of time, the daughter actually was thanking the father. She said that, you know, thanks, Dad, for allowing me to be awake during my sleep hours, because at least I can go back with these memories of watching and experiencing this moment of live cricket. So that sort of stayed with me forever, like this kind of an interaction between a daughter and a father. And that sort of will probably mean so much more as she grows up, that she's seen something like this, where the Australian cricket team and the Indian cricket team played a World Cup final. Australia won the title with such huge crowds. So where do you see the relevance of women's cricket?
Well, I think the relevance, as I've mentioned before, is that if sport is to survive and keep growing, you need to appeal to the other half of the population. You can't just be just focusing on the males. I've already mentioned that females play an important role in the home ecosystem, and they decide a lot of the decisions around what the kids will do and what she is willing to to drive the kids to things like that. So there's that element, but there's also, and we look at probably more of a global perspective, and you look at women on boards and women in the executive positions. You have to have a diverse group of people driving whatever you're doing forward, because isn't that what you're trying to do? You're trying to grow your organization, your brand, your sport, and you can't just keep focusing narrowly on just one group of people. So, you know, sports have finally realized this, and they've gone to try to rectify it, albeit some slower than others. But this is a way forward. Women want to be involved in life. Women want to have sport. Women want to play. Women want to give their opinions. So I think it's important for everyone that you have a diverse group of people involved within your company, organization, commentary box, or on the sporting field.
And I guess another way which could possibly be a massive boost is the fact that cricket is going to be played at a multi-sporting event like Commonwealth Games. You know, it will probably just be an indication of the potential growth that we have, and also aid sustainability for women's cricket, you reckon?
Yeah, look, I think I've always been a believer. Like, for instance, I don't like tennis in the Olympics. I think for sports that have wonderful world events, the Olympics, I think, is seen as more the sports that don't necessarily get the platform or aren't as visible as normal big sports. I do see the need for women's cricket, and obviously the Commonwealth Games is understandably the right place to kind of come in, given the fact that it's the Commonwealth nations that play the game of cricket, and it's the women's part of that stream that are still looking for support and education in the wider audience. Yeah, and I know that ICC are looking to potentially get cricket into the Olympics. I think they're looking at 2028, which I think is the LA Games, and potentially then the next one is, they've touted as maybe Brisbane might host it, so 2032. So it's a real opportunity to grow the game so it becomes a global game, so open markets in China, obviously the US. But you'd be surprised for some of these people on this Zoom chat, you know, there is a lot of cricket being played in a lot of countries, and a lot of them have women's sport. I know in China, actually, women's cricket is bigger than men's cricket because they actually think it's a better sport for their females. So there are great opportunities that wait for cricket. It's just being able to market it right and keep growing it.
Absolutely, Lisa. I'm going to be taking in a few more questions that come in. One is from Pranav. Pranav, now that you mentioned the ICC bit as well, the question that comes in from Pranav is the fact that you being part of the ICC committee, have you seen resistance from ICC member countries to allocate resources to women's cricket, or is there a genuine commitment to raise the profile of the women's game?
There are countries that don't allocate any of their money to the women's game. And that's why we're talking at that level, we mentioned BCCI to tag a certain amount of money to state associations. That's being discussed as well, because you will not grow the game if you don't put money into it. Everyone knows that from a business point of view. And if people can't see that, how do you ensure that they're not left behind? So yeah, there is some resistance. People still don't see the commercial value in the women's game, despite the fact that, you know, 86,000 plus filled the MCG. So we just need to, as a sport, we just need to keep putting our best foot forward and creating events like this to change those views over time.
Someone's actually asked Saurav Watts and Parth Rathore the similar question. Ma'am, do you think a league which is basically a mixed gender matches, will that be sort of beneficial for the upliftment of the sport, or can they be organized to bring a bit of equality?
Why do you want to see men and women play together? That would be my question to them. Why?
Sure. Especially after what we've seen at the MCG, I don't think there is that need for a mixed gender sort of game to happen if it can stand on its own. There are a few questions that have come in through Instagram as well. Ashmin Kaur, she's asked, what's the reason Indian women's team is unable to win the big tournaments or the big finals?
That's a tough one. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of the players about the 2017 and then also the T20 last year. None of the players have actually watched those games back, which I think is a little bit concerning, because whilst it's a real low for them, no doubt, and it's hard and it's raw and it's emotional, you've got to try and learn from those mistakes. I also don't think that the Indian women's side play enough games where there's pressure on. So, for instance, our WBBL is played in front of, well, firstly, there's cameras regularly. So it's just like a normal Big Bash coverage. So cameras is in your face as soon as you get out. Interviews, post-match, pre-match, mid-innings. There's a crowd, you know, we've had at times 20,000 watching. So with all of that comes pressure when the lights are on. Can you play in front of a crowd, and when the expectation is there? So I think if India can be exposed to that, and I think a women's IPL will certainly start that. I do feel sorry for the Indian female players and male players, because every time they play, everyone is a pundit, because everyone loves their game. So everyone has an opinion as to how good or bad they are and if they should be in the team. And social media, we know now, it can be such a bad thing for some players coming through. So just be kind. That would be my advice. It's not an easy job. They are putting their time and effort in. Sometimes things don't go to plan, but we don't need to crucify them either on social media.
Yeah, I think from an outside perspective, I do believe better organizing better calendar for the women's team does help, because, you know, you're looking at our female team playing probably a test match after 5+ years. So, you know, they've not played a test for 5+ years, which is very sort of baffling if you look at the cricket calendar that's been drawn for them. And as you mentioned, the exposure, because I think what happened at the MCG was a clear case of just nerves, not being able to deal with the nerves with that kind of crowd that was present there. There's another question that's coming from Ashmin. How do female sports person deal with their menstrual cycle?
Yeah. I actually think it's more of an issue here in India than it is anywhere else. The amount of conversations I've had when I was doing some work with Rajasthan Royals, a lot of girls came up and they said, ma'am, what do we do? And I've spoken to a couple of sports scientists as well. And they said they track a women's cycle, and on certain days they won't train. And I said, really? That didn't happen in our country. You literally take a tablet and off you go. You got a little bit of pain, you get on with it. There is research that has been done that there are a lot more soft tissue injuries when a female is in her cycle. But what I think, to be honest, is education. Now, there is a lack of education on what it is, how it affects you, what can you do to reduce the pain, even how do you manage it. So obviously in this country, as I know, and I've spent a bit of time now, not many females use tampons. I'm not quite sure. I'll ask males if they want to run around with a big thing in between their legs and see how they go. You know, you can't play sport like that. So that's why I think an education is really important about it. And it's part of life. I know Rajasthan Royals did a huge campaign last IPL to kind of take away the stigma about it. And I know rurally, there's still some amazing beliefs that a woman can't be in the kitchen or can't be in the house. And I just think we're in 2021, really? Do they want the women to produce kids? Well, this is all part of it. So let's just get on with it. It's just a natural part of life. So I think we need to take away, hence why I don't mind talking about it, because I don't see it as a big issue. I just think it's part of what we deal with, and it's part of what males have to deal with if you've got women in your household. You have to deal with the moods, you have to deal with all of it. So let's just talk about it.
Okay, there's another question coming in from Cricket Satire. What was the feeling when you were asked for your first autograph? Do you remember where it was and how it was?
I don't know where it was, but you kind of internally, as though you're trying to stay cool, think that, yeah, I get asked for my autograph all the time. It's kind of like, do they really want it? You really want my autograph? Okay, cool. So yeah, it kind of, I never played the game to become famous, because back then women's cricket didn't really even exist. I played the game just because I loved it. So to be able to know that you've had an impact on someone sees you as a role model, it kind of makes you feel that all of the things that you've sacrificed along the way to achieve what you've wanted to has been worth it.
Okay. Another question from a fan from on Twitter. Any tips for budding female cricketers and also cricket analysts? Now, I think the handle is cricket analyst, so I'm assuming it's some statistician who's asked this question.
Yeah, I think for any young budding cricketer, regardless whether they're female or male, is that you've got to be passionate about what you want to do, anything in life. And if you are, you're willing to do the hard work. Nothing comes easy, unfortunately. You've got to work hard. You've got to make sacrifices, whether it's missing out on parties, going away on holidays with your mates because you've got cricket or cricket training. Those little things, they really make a difference. As for a cricket analyst, it's all we tend as athletes to work on our physical side because it's a measurable thing. So how fast I run, I can measure that and I can see that I'm improving. How many runs am I scoring? I can measure that and see how I'm going over seasons or per match. The hard thing is, how do you measure mental strength? You can't. So we never really touch it. But I think, meditation, being relaxed, being calm, being focused at the right time will allow you to make clear, decisive decisions, regardless of whether it's facing a cricket ball or you're about to do a presentation in the boardroom. The second part of the question was about the commentary.
Did you sort of face any challenges when you were sort of breaking into the commentary box or otherwise?
The only challenges I had to face was that there is no course on it. There was no one giving me any tips. It's literally, you're in the box, here's the mic, away you go. And it's like, so what do I do? Talk about what? That was my biggest challenge. I've had wonderful co-commentators who have spent time working with me and giving me little tips and insights into how it works. Obviously coming over here in the IPL in 2015, that was probably the biggest defining moment for me in my career. I thought the IPL would be a 10-year plan and I had already mapped that out. Like, I'm very goal orientated. So 10-year plan was IPL, but that was my first year and I got straight into it. So I was thrown into the deep end, so to speak. But since then, I'd like to think that I've improved slightly and I'm being able to articulate what I want to get across. And hopefully people can see that I'm absolutely having a ball in the commentary box. I'm enjoying the company of my co-commentators and I think I've got the best gig in the world. So if that comes across, then I'm doing my job well.
Thanks, Lisa. It's always a pleasure to sort of connect with you and this time around for all things women's cricket. And here's hoping that, we see many more high points in women's cricket with India, with Australia, and just the whole standalone women's cricket as such. Thank you very much for your time, and to all the members who asked the questions and stayed around with us for this evening session. Thank you for being with us at the Emerge Sports Conclave. And now I'd like to sort of hand over to Mr. Ajit Mangrulkar, Director General of the Indian Merchant Chambers, to share his vote of thanks.
Thank you, Harini, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've had an fantastic session. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Harini. I think women's cricket is going to go places and we are all there to support it. So, I mean, it was just a fantastic fireside chat. Today was indeed one of its kind conclave. In India, cricket has always been the epitome of sports. But today, we at IMC take pride in having brought this star-studded program to you with stars and athletes from various sporting backgrounds. I feel honored today for being amongst Olympians, Padma Shri and Arjuna awardees who joined us on various panels. They are the ones who have strived so many ways to make India proud. I want to thank Mr. Sumariwala and Mr. Neeraj Bajaj for accepting and honoring our request to join us as chief guests. I want to thank Mr. Pranav Gandhi, Mr. Pradeep Dwivedi, Mr. Vivek Raicha, Mr. Venki Mysore, Mr. Namdev Shivkarkar, Mr. Supratik Sen, and last but not the least, Harini Rana as part of the organizing committee for putting together this event and its content, and also putting together such an impressive panel together, and also for all the brilliant ideas to make this event memorable. Collectively, you have created a benchmark at IMC, and I thank you for the same. I thank all our esteemed moderators and panelists. I think without you all, this program would not have been what it has been today. I think we've all been glued from 10 to 5. We've had a great audience. I want to thank Mr. Nilesh Kulkarni, member of the Conclave Organizing Committee and founder of Indian Institute of Sports Management, for his inputs and role in putting together the white paper that we launched today. Mr. Kulkarni and his team published the book in absolute record time. The same will be available with the IMC Secretariat in case anyone may need it. I want to also thank Mr. Pradeep Dwivedi, CEO Eros International, and Mr. Venki Mysore, CEO Kolkata Knight Riders, for sponsoring the gifts, giveaways for today. They're exclusive design memorabilia that you can enjoy as a souvenir of this event. I want to thank our president, Mr. Rajiv Podar, for putting his time and effort to ensure that this event shapes up the way it did. In fact, it was his brainchild and is a first at IMC. Thank you, sir. Most importantly, I would like to thank all the attendees who have patiently sat through, and I think it's been an absolute fantastic day. Panel after panel has been absolutely fantastic. And if we say it's one of its kind, I'm sure it has turned out that way. Last but not the least, Team IMC, led by Deputy Director General Sanjay Mehta, Sheetal Kalro, Officer in Charge, Joint Director Chitra, and of course, our IT team led by Director Selby. Thank you very much, everyone. IMC is very grateful for all of you for having attended this event and having supported it wholeheartedly. Thank you. Stay safe.